We begin in Bangladesh, where the day ended radically different from the way it began. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned today and fled the country after weeks of student protests that had turned deadly. In what looked like another day of violence, demonstrators earlier today stormed the Prime Minister's official residence in Dhaka. And hours later, the head of the army asked the nation to end the violence and to let him and opposition political parties form a temporary new government. We have more now in this report.
After months of protests and hundreds of people killed, Bangladesh's anti-government protesters got what they wanted. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has stepped down.
The Honourable Prime Minister has resigned from her post, and we will form an interim government to run the country. God willing, whatever demands you have, we will fulfill them. And we will bring peace back.
Defying a nationwide military curfew, thousands stormed Sheikh Hasina's official residence after her departure, a day after deadly clashes killed over 90 people.
Standing in the official residence, we proudly declare the autocracy has come to an end.
Sheikh Hasina was the longest-serving Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Critics accuse her government of misusing state institutions and using deadly violence against opposition activists to stay in power, which the government has denied. Protesters also lashed out at a statue of Hasina's father, Mujibur Rahman, who led Bangladesh to independence and was assassinated in a military coup. His political party, the Awami League, has benefited for decades from quotas that reserved a share of government jobs to freedom fighters who fought for independence and their families. The reintroduction of quotas that have since been scrapped again is what initially sparked the deadly student-led protests. And with Sheikh Hasina gone, demonstrators hope to see a new era with lasting reforms.
This is not just the end of the tyrant Sheikh Hasina. With this, we put an end to the mafia state that she has created. We put an end to the corporate kleptocracy that she has started. We don't want a military government. What we need is a civilians charter. We need a civilians government, and we're going to ensure it.
The military has promised to launch an investigation into the deadly crackdown on protests.
Well, I'm joined now by Prapti Taposhi. She's a student activist, and she joins me from Dhaka. It's good to have you with us tonight. I understand you were out there on the streets with other students. You've been protesting about what you saw were abuses of power by the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's government. Are you satisfied with what happened today?
I'm definitely glad that the dictator finally has stepped down and army has taken over. But the thing is, if you say if I'm satisfied or not, I believe as Bangladeshi people, as a student of Bangladesh, this is more, there is so much more to done yet. Our country has just freed ourselves from a dictator, from a fascist regime, and there is so much more to done to reform our whole country yet. Another thing that I want to shed light by today's show, that is right now when I'm talking live on Deutsche Welle, many minorities, the religious minorities, the Hindu minorities, they are being attacked in Bangladesh. And as I have already told that army has taken over, but till now we have seen that the army has not done enough to protect the religious minorities. So I'm glad that Sheikh Hasina has stepped down, but as well as I'm very much concerned for the religious minorities who are being attacked right now.
Prapti, do you trust the army to be a benevolent military caretaker as an interim government is formed? I mean, do you believe the general when he says, I'm on your side, your will be carried out?
See, there's no binary answer that I believe him or I don't. But we have clearly stated, the protesters, the coordinators of the movement have clearly stated that we don't want any martial law, we don't want any regime of army anymore, because the people of Bangladesh has seen a martial regime and the experience was absolutely horrendous. So now we want a proper neutral interim government, and our student leaders and student coordinators have already said that they will give a proper formula to circulate or to formulate that interim government, or how that interim government should be formed. Our University Teachers Network, they have also given a formula. So we believe that by the help of the army, we can finally be able to form that interim government who will be proper neutral and who will give us a re-election where we, the people of Bangladesh, will be finally able to express our democratic rights.
You're putting a lot of faith in the hands of the military, opposition political parties. It's a leap of faith considering what has happened in the last month. Where are you getting this optimism from?
I'm putting a lot of faith in the people of Bangladesh. I'm putting a lot of faith in the students of Bangladesh, in the protesters of Bangladesh, because if the army fails again, if the opposition party, I believe the opposition party had so much more to do in this entire movement, but they failed to do that. So we believe that if the situation gets worsened again, like I have told you that the minorities are being attacked, if they are not protected by tomorrow morning or by tomorrow, we will be again in the roads, we will be again protesting, and we will continue our fights, because the people of Bangladesh, we don't know how to lose. We will continue our fights till we can get finally a democratic, a proper functional democratic regime and democracy.
What about Sheikh Hasina? She fled the country earlier today, and she did so on a military aircraft. So the military helped her leave the country. Is that the right decision in your opinion, or should the military have held her there to maybe, be held accountable to stand trial for the accusations that you've been making?
The former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, who has blood in her hand, our blood of our brothers and sisters. A proper military would have held her accountable, would have pressurized her to take liability of her own actions. But we have seen that the military have helped her and let her flee throughout the country. So this is why I said earlier that there is no binary answer, that I believe the Bangladeshi army or not. The situation will say if the people of Bangladesh should trust the military or not. Till now, we are believing that we can properly say, we can properly watch that the Bangladeshi army clearly helped her to flee the country. So if the country don't cooperate with us, if the country don't help us to get a proper democratic right, to express our proper democratic rights, or to form a impartial, independent interim government by our student leaders, by the people of the country, we will start resisting again. Okay,
student Prapti Taposhi joining us tonight from Dhaka. We appreciate you sharing your account of today. We have to say it was a historic day for Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting.
Well, Sheikh Hasina has been a dominant figure in Bangladesh since the assassination nearly half a century ago of her father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the country's independence leader. Until a few weeks ago, it looked as though she believed she could ride out the unrest by cracking down on protesters. Here's a look back at her political career and the events that led to her hasty departure.
She was once considered an icon of Bangladeshi democracy. The daughter of the country's founding father, she was there when Bangladesh won its independence from Pakistan in 1971. 4 years later, she was on a visit to Europe when the military staged a coup against the fledgling democracy, killing her father and most members of her family. She carried that trauma with her through the rest of her political career. Returning from exile, she helped lead a popular uprising against the military that restored democracy to the Muslim-majority country. Over the next 3 decades, Hasina's rivalry with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or BNP, dominated the country's politics. She became prime minister for the second time in 2009 and stayed there, consolidating her power. When she won her 4th consecutive term as prime minister in January of this year, it appeared she had broad political support. But her victory was hollow. The BNP had boycotted the election. which some international observers said failed to meet democratic standards. Many felt Hasina was turning Bangladesh into a one-party state. Just a few months into her new term, the courts reinstated an unpopular law that critics said would give most government jobs to Hasina's supporters. For many young people, it was the last straw. After several weeks of mass student-led protests that saw hundreds of people killed, 76-year-old Sheikh Hasina has once again left the country she helped to found.
Well, Nusrat Chowdhury is Associate Professor of Anthropology at Amherst College in Massachusetts in the United States. She's written extensively on politics and mass protest in Bangladesh. Welcome to DW. Were you expecting this turn of events?
At some level, you know, I just spoke to you 2 days ago, and I said we were standing on very unstable grounds. So we were expecting, you know, some kind of big event. We just didn't know when that was going to happen. But at some level, many of us who either do research on Bangladesh, who are observers, or who live there, we knew that after so many innocent people have died, and after it has become a much larger popular uprising, it would have been very difficult for the regime to kind of go back to the way things were. So at some level, we were surprised by the haste in which this has happened, but not surprised by the outcome. And also, if you look at the history, not just of Bangladesh, but the political history of South Asia, it seems like a lot of democratic rulers come to power riding on the power of the people, but somehow they tend to forget that, and their own political demise also happens through the hands of the people. So historically speaking, this was not a surprise.
Right. The army says it's working with the country's political parties to form an interim government. History tells us that bad things tend to happen when armies take over countries until things calm down. What are you expecting to happen?
So one of the things I wanted to make clear is that this was not a military coup. There have been some reports, especially in foreign media, trying to describe it as a military coup and trying to make kind of analogies between what happened to Sheikh Hasina's father in 1975. That's not what happened. This was a student-led protest that then became widespread, and ordinary citizens joined in solidarity. But right when I was, preparing for this interview, I got a note from Dhaka that the student leaders who have been leading this Students Against Discrimination movement have just said that they're going to do a press conference and they're going to set out, their demands about the interim government. So although the military has stepped in to kind of, make sure that the handing over of power is peaceful, I think they would do a grave mistake if they ignored the fact that this time it's the students and the ordinary citizens who are extremely aware of the fact that democracy has been hijacked many times in the name of democracy in the history of Bangladesh. So I think if they try to do that, that would be a grave mistake. And I think the students will be back on the streets in no time.
Given that the army was shooting on sight during the first phase of this unrest, why would anyone trust General Waqar Osama's promise to look into the killings?
I don't know if people are actually believing in anything right now. The ordinary citizens of Bangladesh are used to being told lies all the time, but people are also really tired of the violence. I mean, the fact that, one of the banners that we have seen this time, and I've been working on Bangladeshi protest culture for a long time, this is the first time I've seen a banner that says, Buk petechi guli koro, which in English means I'm offering my chest, you shoot. That's the point at which this movement has gone. So people have nothing to lose. They're just, observing how this peaceful handover of power happens. So they're giving the military the benefit of the doubt, which I don't think anybody can take for granted at this point.
OK. Now, you talked about how history tells us that it was unlikely that Sheikh Hasina could ride out this unrest. She was once very popular, the daughter of the country's founder. She's led the country for most of the last 30 years. Was it just this sequence of events, or was there a run-up to this beyond this demonstration about jobs?
Oh, there's a lot of cumulative resentment here. The fact that the last 3 elections are widely believed to be rigged, the main opposition parties didn't participate, and you keep on coming back to power and claim that you're the one who brought democracy to this country, and your words and your actions don't match. And in addition to that, the fact that the economy has been in crisis, that people can't buy, everyday things. People's, it's been really hard to maintain just kind of basic lifestyle in Bangladesh. All of this basically compounded the resentment against the regime. And the fact that it was becoming kind of an authoritarian regime means that whoever was at the head of the state was making a lot of the decisions. So clearly all the anger became personified in this one person who was seen as the one who was basically calling all the shots. So, it was the quota movement acted as what the political scientist Ali Riaz has called a spark, which actually kind of started this fire. But the kind of the resentments leading up to that have been accumulating for a very long time.
Thank you for your fascinating insights, Nusrat Chowdhury from Amherst College in Massachusetts. Thank you so much.